The terminal went silent as the German Shepherd's snarl cut through the air, his powerful body straining against the leash as he lunged at a blonde woman in a white trench coat. The woman stumbled backward, shopping bag swinging. "I don't understand," she pleaded, tears streaming down her face as she cradled her pregnant belly. "Please, I haven't done anything wrong." Travelers scattered. A child screamed. The departure board flickered overhead as chaos erupted through Gate 12. "Ma'am, don't move," Officer Ethan Vance commanded, her muscles burning as she fought to hold back Bandit. Her canine partner had never acted like this. Not in 4 years. Not once. The woman's voice cracked. "I'm pregnant. Can't you see? Why is he doing this to me?" But Bandit wouldn't relent. His bark grew sharper, more desperate, more violent, like he'd detected something beyond human comprehension. His body trembled with urgent intensity, nose pointing directly at her midsection. Security flooded the area. Passengers pressed against windows. And somewhere deep in Ethan's gut, a cold dread began to settle. Because when they finally discovered what Bandit had sensed, when the doctors revealed what was really hidden beneath that white coat and that rounded belly, the truth would be more twisted, more dangerous, and more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. What Bandit uncovered that day wasn't just a crime. It was an international smuggling operation so advanced, so terrifying, that it would force airports worldwide to rewrite their entire security protocols. And it all started with one desperate bark. Before we begin, make sure to hit like and subscribe for more incredible true stories. And I'm curious, have you ever witnessed an animal sense danger before humans realized something was wrong? Drop your experience in the comments below. 20 minutes earlier, the world had been perfectly calm. Officer Ethan Vance moved through Terminal C with the easy confidence of someone who knew every corner, every camera blind spot, every potential threat zone by heart. Bandit walked beside her, his gait steady and professional, his dark eyes scanning the crowds with quiet intelligence. For years they'd been partners. 4 years of perfect synchronization, of trust so deep it didn't need words. The morning rush was tapering off. Business travelers queued at Starbucks, thumbing through emails. Families corralled restless children near the departure gates. The usual symphony of rolling luggage, gate announcements, and distant conversations filled the air with comfortable white noise. Just another Tuesday. Just another shift. Ethan paused near Gate 9, watching a young couple argue over boarding passes. Bandit sat without being commanded, his attention focused but relaxed. This was their rhythm. Walk, observe, assess, move on. They'd made this patrol 100 times, maybe more. Nothing ever happened at Terminal C. It was almost boring. "Good boy," Ethan murmured, reaching down to brush her fingers across Bandit's head. His tail gave a single, satisfied thump against the floor. They continued past the bookstore, past the family restroom, past the cluster of charging stations where teenagers hunched over glowing screens. Everything was normal. Everything was safe. Ethan felt her mind beginning to drift toward the paperwork waiting back at the precinct, the incident report she needed to file before end of shift. Then Bandit's body language changed. It was subtle at first. A barely perceptible stiffening of his shoulders. His ears rotated forward, locked onto something Ethan couldn't yet see. His pace slowed by a fraction, each step becoming more deliberate, more focused. "What is it?" Ethan asked quietly, her hand instinctively moving to his collar. Bandit's nose lifted, testing the air. His nostrils flared. Whatever he'd detected, it was getting stronger. His entire body began to vibrate with tension, like a wire pulled too tight. The easy rhythm shattered. The comfortable routine dissolved. Near gate 12, a woman appeared in the flow of travelers. Blonde hair, white trench coat, dark jeans, shopping bags hanging from both hands. She moved slowly through the crowd, her gait careful and measured, like someone carrying something precious or fragile. Her belly was round beneath the coat, unmistakably pregnant. Bandit's growl started low in his chest, almost subsonic. A warning rumble that Ethan felt more than heard. The woman was perhaps 30 yards away now, moving toward the security checkpoint with that same deliberate, almost rehearsed precision. Nothing about her seemed threatening. Nothing about her seemed wrong. But Bandit knew different. His growl intensified. His muscles coiled. And then, without warning, without any command or provocation, Bandit exploded forward. The leash burned through Ethan's hand as he lunged, his snarl cutting through the terminal's ambient noise like a knife through silk. His bark erupted, wild and desperate and completely unlike anything Ethan had ever heard from him before. The crowd froze. The woman stumbled backward. And the routine life of Terminal C died in an instant. The woman's eyes went wide with shock, then filled with tears that spilled down her cheeks in genuine-looking streams. "I don't understand," she said, her voice breaking on every syllable. "Please, I haven't done anything wrong." Ethan tightened her grip on Bandit's leash, her arm trembling from the force of his pulling. He was a 70-pound missile of muscle and fury, and every instinct in his body was screaming danger. But the woman in front of them looked like a victim, not a criminal. Pregnant, vulnerable, terrified. "Ma'am, I need you to stay calm," Ethan said, trying to keep her own voice steady. Her training kicked in automatically. Assess, de-escalate, control. But nothing in her training manual covered this. Nothing prepared her for the way Bandit's entire body shook with desperate urgency. The woman took a shaky step backward, her shopping bag swinging. "I'm just trying to go home," she pleaded, one hand moving protectively to her rounded belly. "Please make him stop. He's scaring me." The crowd had formed a wide circle now, phones raised, everyone recording the spectacle. Ethan could feel their judgment pressing in from all sides. A pregnant woman being terrorized by a police dog. It looked bad. It looked really bad. "Miss, please put your bags down and keep your hands where I can see them," Ethan commanded, but even as she said it, doubt crept into her voice. What threat could this woman possibly pose? She was crying. She was pregnant. She looked like she might collapse at any moment. "Why are you doing this to me?" The woman's voice climbed higher, more desperate. "I showed my ticket. I went through security. Everything is fine. Why won't you just let me go?" Bandit's bark intensified, his focus laser-sharp on her midsection. His nose pointed at her stomach like he was trying to tunnel through the air itself to reach whatever he sensed beneath that white coat. A businessman pushed through the crowd. "Officer, can't you see she's pregnant? Control your dog." "This is excessive force," someone else shouted. Ethan felt heat rising in her face. Protocol said to trust the K9. But protocol also said to use reasonable judgment, and nothing about this situation seemed reasonable. The woman wasn't running, wasn't reaching for anything, wasn't displaying any signs of aggression whatsoever. "Please," the woman sobbed, her entire body shaking now. "I have a doctor's appointment in Phoenix. My son is waiting for me. I just want to go home." She clutched her stomach tighter, her knuckles white. "Please, you're going to hurt my baby." The words hit Ethan like a physical blow. "Your baby." Those 2 words changed everything, made her feel like a monster for even considering that this woman might be dangerous. But Bandit wouldn't stop. His bark had become almost frantic now, desperate and pleading in a way Ethan had never heard before. Like he was trying to tell her something. Like he was begging her to listen. The woman's legs wobbled. "I feel dizzy," she whispered. "Please, I need to sit down." Ethan's radio crackled. "Vance, what's your situation?" She looked at the terrified pregnant woman, then at Bandit, whose entire being was consumed by whatever he'd detected. Trust the dog or trust her eyes. The moment Bandit's bark reached its crescendo, the terminal exploded into chaos. A mother near the bookstore grabbed her toddler and ran toward the exit, her abandoned coffee cup clattering across the floor. The child's scream pierced through the noise, high and terrified, triggering a ripple effect through the crowd. More people scattered, some dropping bags in their haste to get away from whatever danger the police dog had detected. "Everybody stay calm," Ethan shouted, but her voice was swallowed by the growing panic. An elderly man stumbled, his rolling suitcase tipping sideways and blocking the path of fleeing travelers. 2 teenagers collided near the charging stations, phones tumbling from their hands. The departure board flickered erratically overhead, gate changes flashing across the screen in rhythm with the chaos below. "Is there a bomb?" Someone yelled. "Active shooter. Run." The word spread like wildfire, each person adding their own terrified interpretation to what was happening. Within seconds, Gate 12 had transformed from a peaceful transit hub into a stampede zone. People pushed and shoved, desperate to distance themselves from the snarling German shepherd and the pregnant woman at the center of it all. Bandit lunged forward again, nearly yanking Ethan off her feet. The leash burned against her palm as she dug her heels in, using every ounce of her strength to hold him back. His bark had become almost rabid now, foam gathering at the corners of his mouth, his eyes wild with urgency. The pregnant woman swayed on her feet, clutching her shopping bags like they were the only things keeping her upright. "Help me," she gasped, her face drained of all color. "Somebody help me." A TSA agent rushed over, his hand on his radio. "Officer, we need to clear this area. Now." "I'm trying," Ethan snapped, her muscles screaming from the effort of restraining Bandit. More security personnel flooded in, creating a perimeter around the scene. Their radios crackled with overlapping voices, supervisors demanding updates, other terminals asking if they needed to initiate lockdown procedures. The panic was contagious, spreading beyond Gate 12 now, reaching into the other concourses. A businessman in a suit pressed himself against the wall, his briefcase held up like a shield. A family huddled behind a support pillar, the father recording everything on his phone while his wife covered their daughter's eyes. Everyone was watching. Everyone was judging. And through it all, Bandit wouldn't stop. His focus never wavered from the woman's stomach, his body trembling with such intensity that Ethan could feel the vibrations through the leash. Whatever he sensed, whatever invisible threat he'd detected, it consumed him completely. The woman's shopping bag shifted in her grip, and Ethan heard it again. That faint metallic sound, like coins rattling, or keys, or something heavier, more deliberate. The woman's movements were too careful, too controlled for someone on the verge of collapse. "Ma'am," Ethan said, her voice cutting through the noise with newfound authority. "I need you to put those bags down. Right now." The woman's eyes flickered. Just for a second. A micro-expression that Ethan's training had taught her to recognize. Fear, yes. But something else underneath it. Calculation. Secondary screening, Ethan said into her radio. "Gate 12. I need backup now." Ethan's shoulder joint screamed in protest as Bandit threw his full weight forward again. The leash cut into her palm, drawing a thin line of blood she barely registered through the adrenaline. Her boots squeaked against the polished floor, losing traction as 70 pounds of determined German Shepherd pulled with the force of a small vehicle. "Bandit, heel," she commanded, knowing even as she said it that he wouldn't obey. In 4 years, he'd never ignored a direct command. Not once. But right now, training meant nothing. Protocol meant nothing. All that existed for him was whatever he'd detected in that woman's midsection. Ethan shifted her stance, planting her back foot against a support column for leverage. Her bicep burned, muscles trembling from the sustained effort. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the terminal's air conditioning. This wasn't control anymore. This was barely managed chaos. The backup officers arrived, forming a loose semicircle around the scene. Martinez, a 10-year veteran, approached cautiously. "Vance, you need me to take him?" "No," Ethan gasped, adjusting her grip. "He won't go." "Something's wrong here, Martinez. Really wrong." Bandit's claws scraped frantically against the floor, leaving deep gouges in the finish. His entire body vibrated with urgency, every muscle fiber engaged in the singular mission of reaching that woman. Saliva dripped from his jaws. His bark had evolved into something primal, a sound that bypassed rational thought and spoke directly to the primitive part of the human brain that recognized predator warnings. The pregnant woman had sunk to her knees now, still clutching those shopping bags with white-knuckled intensity. "Please," she sobbed. "Someone make him stop." Ethan's arms shook violently. She could feel her grip weakening, the leash slowly sliding through her torn palm. If Bandit broke free, if he actually reached the woman, it would be career-ending. Lawsuit territory. Maybe criminal charges. A police dog attacking a pregnant woman would make national headlines for all the wrong reasons. But then Bandit did something he'd never done before. He stopped barking. The sudden silence was more terrifying than the noise had been. Bandit's body went rigid. His nose extended toward the woman's stomach, trembling. His whole being focused with laser precision on that one spot. And then came the sound, a low, continuous whine that started deep in his chest and built to a pitch that made Ethan's teeth ache. It wasn't aggression anymore. It was desperation. Pleading. He was trying to tell her something. Ethan looked at the woman. Really looked. The way her hands gripped those bags despite claiming dizziness. The rehearsed quality of her tears. The calculated placement of her body, always keeping her stomach angled away from direct view. The too perfect timing of her emotional appeals. And that metallic sound. Faint but unmistakable. 4 years of partnership crystallized into a single moment of absolute clarity. Bandit had never been wrong. Not about the cocaine hidden in a child's stuffed bear. Not about the weapons cache buried in checked luggage. Not about the man with the fake service dog carrying stolen passports. Never wrong. Ethan made her decision. "Get me a screening room," she said into her radio, her voice steady now despite the burning in her arms. "And call medical on standby. Something's very wrong here, and we're going to find out what." The screening room was small and sterile, fluorescent lights humming overhead like trapped insects. The woman sat in a plastic chair, her shopping bags placed on the metal table before her hands still protectively cradling her rounded belly. Through the observation window, Ethan could see Bandit pacing frantically outside, his claws clicking against the floor in an agitated rhythm. "What's happening?" the woman asked, her voice small and wounded. Why is he barking at me like that? I don't understand any of this. TSA Agent Rodriguez began the standard protocol, pulling on latex gloves with practiced efficiency. Ma'am, this is just a routine secondary screening. We need to inspect your bags and... Routine. The woman's voice cracked, climbing toward hysteria. That dog was trying to attack me. There's nothing routine about this. Tears streamed down her face, but Ethan noticed they didn't reach her eyes. The performance was good, she'd give her that. Almost believable. Martinez stood by the door, his hand resting on his radio. Miss, we just need you to cooperate. The faster we get through this, the faster you can catch your flight. I'm pregnant, the woman said, her voice taking on a pleading, desperate quality. Can't you see? Look at me. I'm 7 months along. Why is he doing this to me? She gestured toward the window where Bandit's silhouette paced like a caged animal. Dogs are supposed to be gentle with pregnant women. What kind of police dog attacks someone carrying a baby? Ethan stepped forward, keeping her voice level. Bandit didn't attack you, ma'am. He alerted. There's a difference. Alerted to what? The woman's hands tightened on her stomach. To my baby. Is that a crime now? Being pregnant at an airport. Rodriguez opened the first shopping bag. Inside were innocuous items. A magazine, a water bottle, some tissues. Nothing suspicious. The second bag held similar contents. A paperback novel. Hand sanitizer. Breath mints. See, the woman said, her voice taking on a note of vindication. There's nothing. I told you. There's nothing wrong. But Bandit's whining outside intensified. His nose pressed against the glass of the observation window, leaving smears of moisture. His entire body trembled, that desperate, frantic energy building rather than dissipating. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to stand for a physical pat-down, Rodriguez said. The woman's face went pale. No, absolutely not. You can't touch me. I have rights. Her breathing quickened, shallow and rapid. I'm pregnant. You could hurt my baby. It's a standard procedure. I said no. The woman lurched to her feet, then immediately swayed, her hand shooting out to grip the table's edge. I don't feel well, she whispered. I'm dizzy. Ethan watched her carefully. The pallor could be fear, could be the stress of the situation. But something about the way she gripped that table, the way her knuckles had gone white, the way she angled her body away from Rodriguez's approach, it all felt choreographed, practiced. I need to sit down, the woman gasped. Please. Something's wrong. I don't feel right. Outside the window, Bandit's pawing became frantic, his claws scraping against the glass like he was trying to break through. His whine climbed higher, more urgent, more desperate than Ethan had ever heard. Bandit's behavior had crossed from urgent to unhinged. Through the observation window, Ethan watched her partner throw himself against the glass with such force that the entire frame shuddered. His bark had evolved into something she'd never heard before, raw, primal, almost human in its desperation. Each sound tore from his throat like a scream, reverberating through the small screening room until the fluorescent lights seemed to vibrate in sympathy. Jesus, Martinez muttered, taking an involuntary step back from the door. I've never seen a K9 act like that. The woman in the chair flinched with each impact, her hands still clutched protectively over her stomach. Make him stop, she whimpered. Please God, make him stop. Bandit's claws scraped down the glass, leaving streaks across the surface. His eyes were wild, pupils dilated so wide they looked black. Foam gathered thick at the corners of his mouth, dripping onto the floor in viscous strands. Every muscle in his body strained toward the woman, toward whatever invisible threat he detected that no human sense could perceive. "Ethan, maybe we should sedate him," Rodriguez suggested nervously. "He's going to hurt himself." But Ethan shook her head, unable to tear her eyes away from her partner's frantic display. 4 years. 4 years of perfect discipline, of flawless obedience, of trust built on thousands of training hours. And now he was acting like a dog possessed, like every instinct in his body was screaming a single word: danger. Bandit reared back and slammed both paws against the glass. The sound cracked through the room like a gunshot. His bark climbed higher, sharper, more violent with each repetition. It wasn't just alerting anymore. It was warning, begging, demanding they listen. The woman doubled over suddenly, a gasp of pain escaping her lips. "Oh God," she moaned, her face contorting. "Something's wrong. Something's really wrong." Bandit went absolutely berserk. His entire body trembled with such intensity that he seemed to blur, like an image caught mid-vibration. The bark transformed into a continuous, ear-splitting howl that made everyone in the room wince. He threw himself at the door now, abandoning the window, his body a battering ram of muscle and fur and pure, undiluted panic. "My stomach," the woman gasped, clutching her belly. "It burns. Oh God, it burns." Outside, Bandit's howl reached a fever pitch. His claws tore at the doorframe, splinters of wood flying. Blood appeared on his paws where he'd scraped them raw, but he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. His entire being was consumed by a single desperate mission: to reach that woman, to stop whatever horror he sensed unfolding inside that screening room. "Call medical," Ethan commanded, her training overriding the ice-cold dread spreading through her chest. Now, the woman's face had gone gray. She pitched forward, her shopping bag sliding from the table and spilling across the floor. And in that moment, as the woman collapsed and Bandit's howl reached its apex, Ethan saw it. One of the shopping bags had torn, and sewn into the inner lining, barely visible, was a small metallic patch. Not decorative. Not random. Deliberate. "Martinez, get Bandit in here. Rodriguez, don't let her move." The woman lay on the floor now, curled into herself, moaning in genuine agony. Her hands pressed against her stomach, and through her white coat, Ethan could see something that made her blood run cold. The rounded belly was moving, shifting, in ways that no pregnancy ever should. The hospital emergency room smelled like antiseptic and fear. Ethan stood outside the examination room, Bandit finally quiet at her side, his body still trembling with residual adrenaline. Through the small window in the door, she could see doctors moving with controlled urgency around the woman who'd collapsed at the airport. For lines snaked across her arms. Monitors beeped in syncopated rhythm. And the ultrasound machine hummed as Dr. Sarah Chen moved the probe across the woman's distended belly. Martinez appeared beside Ethan, 2 cups of vending machine coffee in his hands. "Any word?" "Not yet." Ethan's voice was hoarse from the chaos of the last hour. The ambulance ride. The questions from airport security. The incident reports that would take days to complete. But none of it mattered compared to the question burning in her mind. What had Bandit detected? The examination room door opened. Dr. Chen emerged, her face tight with an expression Ethan couldn't quite read. Not confusion exactly. Something closer to disbelief. "Officer Vance." Dr. Chen pulled off her latex gloves with slow, deliberate movements. "I need to show you something." Ethan followed her back into the room. The woman lay sedated on the bed, her white trench coat folded on a nearby chair, her belly still prominently rounded beneath the hospital gown. On the ultrasound screen, images flickered in grayscale patterns that Ethan's untrained eye couldn't interpret. "I've been an OB/GYN for 15 years, Dr. Chen said quietly. "I've seen thousands of ultrasounds. Healthy pregnancies, complicated ones, every variation you can imagine." She paused, her finger pointing at the screen. "This is not a pregnancy." The words hung in the air like a physical presence. "What?" Ethan stepped closer, staring at the strange jagged patterns on the monitor. "The structure is wrong. Completely wrong." Dr. Chen zoomed in on a section of the image. "See this? A fetus at 7 months, which is what she claimed, would show clearly defined features. Head, spine, limbs. What I'm seeing here is..." She trailed off, searching for words. "It's a foreign object. Synthetic. And inside it." "Inside it what?" Dr. Chen's expression hardened. "Liquid. High density. My guess, based on the toxicology we ran when she started seizing, it's narcotics. Highly concentrated liquid narcotics." The room tilted slightly. Ethan gripped the edge of the examination table to steady herself. "She's not pregnant. No. She's carrying what appears to be a sophisticated silicone prosthetic. A fake womb." Dr. Chen pulled up another image on the screen. "And based on the metabolic markers in her bloodstream, it's leaking. That's why she collapsed. She's being poisoned by whatever she's smuggling." Ethan's mind raced through the implications. Not a threat. Not a bomb or a weapon. Something far more insidious. A scam so sophisticated, so perfectly designed to exploit human sympathy and bypass security protocols, that it had nearly worked. "How long has she been carrying this?" Ethan asked. "Hours, maybe. Days at most before the toxicity would become fatal." Dr. Chen gestured toward the woman's sedated form. "Your dog saved her life. Another hour and the leakage would have caused organ failure." Martinez had followed them in, his face pale. Jesus Christ. How many others? That was the question that made Ethan's blood run cold. If this woman had made it this far, if she'd passed through initial security with a fake pregnancy so convincing it fooled body scanners, how many others had succeeded? How many flights had carried human mules with synthetic wombs filled with liquid narcotics, crossing borders, evading every checkpoint? "She was never the threat," Ethan said slowly, pieces clicking into place. "She's a victim. Someone forced her to do this." Dr. Chen nodded grimly. "When she wakes up, she's going to need police protection. And you're going to need answers." The woman's name was Sophia Reyes, and when she finally woke 6 hours later, the first words out of her mouth were, "My son. Please. They have my son." Ethan sat beside the hospital bed, her notepad open, pen ready. But she set both down when she saw the raw terror in Sophia's eyes. No longer the calculated performance from the airport, but genuine soul-deep fear. "Tell me everything," Ethan said quietly. The story that emerged was worse than anything Ethan had imagined. A trafficking ring that operated across 3 continents, targeting vulnerable women. Single mothers, refugees, anyone desperate enough to believe their promises. Sophia had been recruited in Tijuana, told her son would be harmed if she didn't cooperate. The procedure had taken less than an hour in a makeshift clinic. The silicone prosthetic inserted through a small incision, sealed, filled with liquid fentanyl worth $3 million on the street. They call him Apollo, Sophia whispered, her hand clutching the hospital sheets. I never saw his face. But he has people everywhere. Airports, customs, police. She looked at Ethan with hollow eyes. He said if I failed, my boy would disappear. Martinez entered the room, his phone pressed to his ear. When he hung up, his expression was grim. TSA just flagged another one. Gate 7, Terminal A. Same profile. Pregnant, traveling alone, nervous behavior. Ethan was on her feet before he finished speaking. Get Bandit. The second intercept happened faster. The woman, younger than Sophia, barely 20, broke down immediately when Bandit alerted. She confessed everything before they even reached the screening room. Another prosthetic womb. Another $3 million in liquid narcotics. Another child held hostage by Apollo's network. Within 48 hours, Sophia's testimony led to a coordinated raid. 6 arrests across 2 countries. The makeshift clinic in Tijuana shut down. The courier network dismantled. And Apollo himself, whose real name was Victor Molina, arrested at a private airfield trying to flee to Colombia. But the real impact came 3 weeks later, when Ethan stood in a conference room at TSA headquarters, surrounded by security directors from airports across the globe. On the screen behind her, images of the prosthetic devices, the medical scans, Bandit's alert response at Gate 12. Traditional screening methods failed, the TSA director said, his voice heavy. Body scanners, metal detectors, even manual pat-downs. The prosthetics are designed to mimic organic tissue perfectly. They're invisible to our current technology. A woman from Heathrow spoke up. So what's the solution? The director nodded toward Ethan. K9 units. Specifically trained to detect these compounds. Officer Vance's dog detected something our machines couldn't. Something our protocols didn't anticipate. Ethan felt Bandit shift beside her, his warm weight against her leg a comforting presence. She reached down, fingers finding the soft fur behind his ears. Airport security worldwide is implementing new protocols, the director continued. Enhanced K9 screening for pregnant travelers, updated training programs, interagency cooperation on trafficking networks. What happened at Terminal C exposed a vulnerability we didn't know existed. And it forced us to adapt. Later, back in her apartment, Ethan watched the news coverage on her laptop. Bandit's story had gone national. Hero dog saves woman's life, exposes international drug ring. Interview requests flooded her email. Magazine profiles. Documentary producers. But none of it mattered as much as the photograph on her desk. Sophia and her son, reunited, safe. Alive because of a German shepherd's desperate bark. Bandit rested his head on Ethan's knee, eyes half closed, finally at peace. She scratched behind his ears, remembering that moment at Gate 12 when she'd had to choose between trusting protocol or trusting her partner. Good boy, she whispered. You changed everything. And he had.
If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories. Share it with someone who needs to hear about the heroes who listen when others doubt. And tell us in the comments. Have you ever experienced a moment when an animal understood something humans missed? We'd love to hear your story.